Now with buffs being handed out here and there, the best weapons in the game always seem to be changing. The past top 5 and top 10 most OP weapons are now in reality outdated. Today I bring you what in my opinion are now April 2020's top 10 best weapons in the game. How's it going guys, my name's DPJ and today I bring you another BR3 video. If you do enjoy it, leaving a like really helps me out, and subscribe if you do want to see more. So these weapons are what I use on Zane, and this is just my opinion. Yours may differ as different things work in different ways with different Vault Hunters, but taking builds out of the equation, I don't think many top 10s will be dissimilar to this. So let's get into it, people. So in at number 10 we have nothing other than the legendary Cutsman SMG. Now this Cutsman SMG is a dedicated drop to Borman nates within the Meridian outskirts and comes in incendiary, shock and corrosive, and is, to be honest, a weapon which has always been incredible. One which I'm sure most would have higher in the top 5 best weapons. So from the get-go, this was one of the first weapons I covered and said back then that it was an OP weapon. We then got a buff to all Maliwan weapons within September 27th's hotfix, which saw all Maliwan weapons get a damage increase of 25%, as well as a fire rate increase by 20%. This many didn't know at the time affected the Cutsman due to it not being much of a popular weapon back then. We were all fresh to the game, we were all still chasing other legendaries. So what they were using when they actually got this thing was probably an already buffed weapon. And then on October 17th we saw the Cutsman get a damage nerf by 25%. So they took away the buff that they applied to this weapon within the previous September 27th hotfix, which in reality we did feel because this was a popular weapon when it got nerfed. But guys, still until this day the Cutsman is still a super powerful SMG, which is also super unique in how it works, which in my opinion is what makes it so good. The slow travelling projectiles which spread and cover a wider ground means that this is not only stupid good for ag control at a distance, but also is amazing for bosses because it makes for an easier method of hitting them, as you don't really have to be so accurate with aiming. Because these projectiles do spread, they seem to always catch that target. And it's a weapon we often see people use in farming bosses and so forth, and I can't blame them. I mean, I can't tell you how many Walton fast kills I've seen where people are using this weapon, and it's why it is at my number 10 spot. But in reality I think it's a weapon I don't really need to talk about more because I think everybody already knows about this thing. Okay, so we're going to move on, and in at number 9 we have the Q system. Now the Q system, for those that don't know, isn't even a legendary weapon. It's an epic weapon, an epic Atlas assault rifle, which in the mind of many is a low budget carrier, just in the way this looks by the way, not in the way it performs. The thing about this weapon though is the fact of how powerful this thing is considering the weapon itself. The fact that now at a level 57 these can drop quite often with 4k damage per shot, as we see it's a 2 times variant, but it doesn't consume 2 bullets per shot. This means with a magazine size of 20 or say 30, you can deal 120,000 per clip. Now this is without any build which throws in the extra damage either, which if you think about it is a crazy high damage number for a weapon which has amazing handling, accuracy, unlimited range and many more benefits. And it equals out into a weapon which in my opinion is probably the second or third best and most powerful assault rifle in this game. It is a true monster. But the Q system is a world drop by the way, and it's quite often seen within that slaughter shaft. Okay, so we're going to move on. And in at number 8 we have nothing other than the latest addition to the COV family, and that is the Hydro Thrust pistol. Now upon me first using this, I was literally gobsmacked at how well this thing performed. Even within a build and setup which didn't make the most out of it, I for sure thought this thing was on the OP side. Now as you probably know, after a kill every second shot deals 200% shock or incendiary damage. And what this results in is a weapon with one of the highest DPS stat values in this game. It truly is that crazy. Now when you add your build to this, damage becomes just stupid. And what you also have to remember is the fact that this is just a pistol. Even though it performs like an SMG, it is a pistol. And well, taking that into account, that's this weapon's only downfall. Because it is a pistol, its ammo is limited, and only that near 2/3 of what an SMG would offer in this game. And really people, That's why it's number 8 on my list. I mean, if this thing could work for a longer period of time, I don't think you'd ever have to change your weapon. I mean, it basically already fires 3 different elements at the same time for a starter. Add on to that its great fire rate too. It truly does almost outgun anything this game can offer. And I'll put it into this perspective. The Q system which we just covered is crazy powerful with 4k plus per shot. This thing has 3 times its fire rate and does just about over 3k per shot. Although it does consume more ammo, it still deals that damage at a much quicker rate. And this doesn't include the additional damage generated after a kill, where we get that 200 bonus every second shot. So you can see what I mean by how this thing is actually crazy capable of that DPS. And that's why it is on this list, people. Again, if its overall ammo capacity was bigger, this would probably be top 5. Okay, so we're going to move on. And in at number 7 we have nothing other than the Krakatoa Maliwan Sniper Rifle. Now I will be honest with you, I ain't much of a sniper kind of player. There are the odd ones I do enjoy, mainly the Wedding Invitation, the Hellfire, the Unseen Threat, and probably a few other usual suspects. But for me, there's just something about this Krakatoa which makes me choose it over the others. It could just be its capable DPS, and it being way more apparent than other snipers in the game. I mean, the closest sniper to this damage wise on paper is the School Masher. But that is seriously let down by its magazine size. I mean, you're constantly reloading. As in actual fact, the School Masher does do close to 15k damage within most variants. But it shoots slower, and like I said, it's let down by its magazine size, normally around that 4. Taking this into account, and we see a much higher DPS with the Krakatoa, and this monster isn't far behind with around 14k damage on most variants. But it shoots much quicker, has a much bigger magazine size, and if you build up correctly around this, is the ultimate boss killing machine tool for sure. Now the Krakatoa is a dedicated drop to the Rampager upon the forgotten Basilica. But it wasn't always a super powerful weapon. This thing received a damage buff, where this thing's damage stat value went from a 1 to a 4.25, which I think is one of the biggest damage increases we've seen applied to any weapon across this game's hotfixes. And from the moment we heard about this hotfix, most players jumped onto this weapon, tried it out, and we've never looked back. For me, it never leaves my loadout. So yeah, like I said, this thing drops from the Rampager. Go get this thing. You will not be disappointed. Okay, so we're going to move on, and in at number 6 we have nothing other than the Hellshock Pistol. This is another Maliwan weapon which hits like a truck. It drops from Gigamon upon the Meridian Metroplex, and in my opinion is 100% worth your time getting your hands on. Now I actually not long just tested this thing after it received a buff not too long ago via a hotfix. And to be honest, I was a little disappointed with myself for not realising about this weapon sooner. So what this Hellshock does is quite simple. It can switch between incendiary and shock, and bullets ricochet the element not selected. So if you're in that shock mode, your ricocheted shots would shoot in that incendiary, and vice versa. But in reality, this is only about 1/20th of the story with this weapon, because this thing is utterly stupid in terms of damage, output and DPS. So we just covered the Hydro Thrust, which we saw was an incredible weapon, while the Hellshock is kind of what you'd want as a next step up from the Hydro Thrust. I mean, the negatives of the Hydro Thrust, they ain't here with this. It's more powerful on paper in terms of doing almost 1k extra damage over standard damage outputs. It doesn't consume 2, 3 or even 4 ammo per shot, and also doesn't overheat and break at random intervals. So what we are left with here, people, is a pistol which acts like an SMG. It's basically more powerful than any SMG or pistol in the game. It's super easy to obtain, and it will do all the jobs you need from a weapon within this game. So the Hellshock, guys, if you don't have this thing and have never used it, go grab it. You will not be disappointed. In fact, I could probably bet, like it did with me, it would surprise you. Okay, so we're going to move on, and next up, and in at number 5 on my list, is the Clairvoyance. Now this Jacobs assault rifle is honestly just amazing, and it arrived with the latest DLC of Guns, Love and Tentacles, and is a dedicated drop from the boss of Critchy, who is found upon Curse Haven. Dropping only offering cryo, but with many different variants. This thing's party trick is crit shot, stick a projectile which later explodes and ricochets another bullet to a nearby enemy. So in reality, crit shots deal 300% damage. Having certain damage anointments can double this easily, and the results are just basically stupidity considering this is an assault rifle. Well, I say assault rifle, it's a lot more like a sniper in terms of how it performs. It's basically the best of both worlds. Now, upon me first getting my hands on this and trying it out, I broke Graveward to a point of me only ever being able to do this with snipers. You deal that much damage in such a short amount of time shooting his hand, he freezes in place. Again, this is something I've only been able to achieve on snipers like the Krakatoa and the Wedding Invitation. That is how crazy this assault rifle is. Now, don't be mistaken, this is also an incredible weapon in controlling those ads too. And for sure it holds its own in places like the Maliwan Raid, the Slaughter Shaft, and anywhere else, quite easily for that matter. And it doesn't matter the size of the enemy you're facing. So what we have here, guys, is the second best assault rifle in the game, but the best acting assault rifle in the game, if you know what I mean. And that's because next up on my list and in at number 4 is nothing other than the sickle. Now, the sickle is a weapon which drops from the Warden upon the Anvil and Eden 6, and comes offering all elements or none. And is a weapon which itself wasn't too long ago on the receiving end of a damage buff which happened on March 5th, taking its damage stat value from a 1.5 to a 2.5, and its underbarrel damage from a 1.5 to a 3.5. So quite the increase there. And what this actually results in, people, is this Vladov assault rifle actually being the best assault rifle in the game and the third best shotgun in the game, because that's how this thing acts. But what's even greater about this is the fact we see it has the ammo capacity of those assault rifles too, so you rarely run out and you can use this thing for all scenarios. Now, damage on paper, we can see these are 10 times variants, and these ain't 100 times 10, these ain't 500 times 10, these are in those thousands. The best I have right now is a 3375 times 10, and this is per single shot, people, with a magazine size of 12, consuming 2 per shot at the same time, each shot delivering over 33k damage. Each shot. That's without anointments, class mods, artifacts, builds, anything. That's just standard damage, and like I said, these come in all variants, offering all elements. I mean, one could ask, what more do you need? And to be honest, there isn't much more you should need. With weapons higher on this list are either there because they offer something nothing else offers, or because they're straight up OP. But yes, on a serious note, there isn't much in this game that can stand toe to toe with the sickle. Yeah, for sure, there's probably a few weapons better for more scenarios the game chucks at you, but it certainly will not let you down anytime soon. Just don't stand too close to a target when firing the thing. Okay, so we're going to move on, guys, and next up on my list and in at number 3 we have the Redistributor SMG. So this SMG drops from the Maliwan Raid from either the Valkyrie Squad or Wotan, and it can come offering any element too. Now, looking at this thing on paper, it isn't that powerful, and in reality when you compare it against any other SMG, for single target damage, to be honest, I probably wouldn't put it in a top 20. But where this thing actually stands out is in a fact where it's top of the game, and that is against groups of enemies, mobbing, whatever you want to call it. There is nothing in this game that can touch this. And it's because of its party trick, and that is every 7th shot is amped. Amped shots chain to nearby enemies. And it's this chaining shots which is why this thing just outdoes all in terms of DPS over mobs of enemies. You will certainly notice when an enemy is near that target you are shooting, because his health will start to drain by tenfold. It is that crazy. And it makes for clearing our ads like nothing you will find in this game. Raid, Slaughter Shaft, whatever. And it's got to a point now where 90% of people have at least one of these within their build, and I don't blame them. And until another weapon enters a loophole which does what this does, it will be a weapon people keep chasing no matter the extra levels they keep adding onto the game. So yes, this Redistributor, although not too easy to obtain, it's worth that grind for sure. Okay, so we're going to move on, and next up on my list and in at number 2 is the Lob Shotgun. Now this Lob comes with all elements and is a dedicated drop. It belongs to Graveward, who as we know is more or less an easy farm right now. I will say though, for me, these seem to be quite rare from him, and I do see them drop way more just doing those general things. So in reality, I think these will find you quicker than you will find them. Now you might not know this, but the Lob has been buffed and nerfed quite a few times already, and it started on October 10th, 2019, where the Lob's projectiles tick damage went up by 40%, and its projectile speed reduced so those ticks laid down more damage. Still, after this buff, it was overshadowed by better weapons in the game. There's no two which ways about it. We then jump into February 27th this year, we saw the Lob receive a crazy damage buff, which made it the best weapon in the game. There's no two which ways about it. It was the best weapon in the game. where they increased its magazine size from 4 to 12, greatly increased damage per tick, and it then fired 3 orbs instead of 1, all doing tick damage. The results were a weapon which in the minds of many was stupid OP. It was crazy silly how powerful it was. But we went along with it and abused its power. Gearbox clocked onto this and then nerfed it again. Well, I say nerfed? In my opinion, what they did was make it perfect. On April 2nd, they reduced those orbs back down to a 1, but increased its fire rate. This patch to the lob took it from a place of being stupid OP, and in turn made it a more balanced weapon, but keeping that characteristic we quickly grew to love in being, if you stand in front of this thing, you are dying. Oh yes, it definitely kept that. And that's why people, it's at my number 2 on this list. The lob is still a crazy weapon and one I feel everyone should be using and making the most out of it. This thing will 100% add to your build. It won't let you down, and if you're struggling with any aspect of this game, this will take many of those struggles away for sure. Okay, so we're going to move on. And in at number 1, and to me easily the most powerful weapon in this game, probably the most powerful weapon this game has ever had, and it's a weapon many people feel a nerf will eventually come to, is nothing other than the Anarchy. Now, after having early access to the DLC of Guns, Love and Tentacles, I do believe I was the first one to cover this thing on YouTube and its power. Since many have picked up on this thing and more tests have been done on actually what this thing is capable of. Now firstly, this is exclusive to the Guns, Love and Tentacles DLC, and I do believe it's a world drop upon Xylagos. It's not by all means a rare item though, and using the many farms I have covered on my channel, you should come across it quickly. Those farms I will link within the video description. So the Anarchy on paper we see is quite powerful. Now I've seen all kinds of variants from a 12 times to a 20 times. It also, by the way, comes in all elements or none at all. And its party trick is every automatic reload, so letting the weapon reload itself on an empty clip, or kills grant a 30% damage bonus but reduces accuracy. This stacks 10 times, so on paper you'd think this stacks up to a 300%, but actually guys, that's wrong, that's completely wrong. Times this by 4 and you're closer to the truth, because this thing stacks way higher, because that 30% damage increase you get after the automatic reload or kill affects the damage you already have stacked from the previous reload, and this results in after 10 stacks of a damage bonus of 1278, and I will say a massive shout out to Z Karma for working that out. But this is how this weapon works. Those stacks, those 30% damage stacks total out in over 1250% damage over that standard damage output. And when you put this into a build set up for extra damage with the right anointments and so forth, what we actually have here is by far the most powerful weapon in this game. And it more or less means nothing else is needed. I've seen the Maliwan Raid run in supersonic speed with this thing, like sub 9 or 8 minutes. And that's just only this thing. I have seen Gravewood be more or less one shot with this. I have seen many things that tell me what I myself am repeating right now. The Anarchy is just crazy powerful, and reality guys, I know some people will get a bit pissy about mentioning it, but this thing is getting a nerf. It 100% is. I don't want to see it, you don't want to see it, Gearbox don't even have to witness it. I'm sure they have numbers blowing up their servers with how much this thing is being spammed out. And to be honest with you, it kinda does need it, much like the lob did. I just hope the changes they make to it though will balance it out, much like we saw with the lob. Because do you guys remember the flakka? Yeah, I didn't think so. It used to be an incredible weapon, but now it's terrible. I just hope that don't happen to this. But yeah people, those are my top 10 weapons, with the Anarchy the clear winner. Now if there is a weapon on this list you are struggling to get, maybe a certain variant of it, you can always join my Discord, linked within that video description. I have dedicated trading sections and much more for each platform, so come and join in. But yeah guys, these are my top 10 best weapons in this game right now, Borderlands 3. If you enjoyed the video, leaving a like really helps out. If you're new around here and want to see more Borderlands, be sure to subscribe, and if you never want to miss a video I upload, you can turn notifications on by hitting that bell button. But guys, thanks as always for stopping by. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and hopefully I will see you on that next one.